thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. As you can tell, I do as I'm told, and I thought I had to stand up at the time when my immediate predecessor would sit down, and clearly I failed. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me with you. I would like to thank the National Press Club, and especially President Angela Grilling-Keane, for not only inviting me to this prestigious venue, but essentially presenting the outline of what I want to talk to you about now. So it's as if we had prepared that together, which we have not. Now let me first of all, of course, begin by wishing you all a Happy New Year. I guess it's still time to do that, given that we are just exactly halfway through between our Western New Year and the Lunar New Year, which will loom in a few weeks' time. I think it's also appropriate to wish ourselves a Happy New Year, given what I would like to talk to you about, which has to do with the global economy and what we should expect for 2014. Now I'm going to test you numerology skills by asking you to think about the magic 7. Okay? Most of you will know that 7 is quite a number in all sorts of themes, religions, and I'm sure that you can compress numbers. We think about 2014. Alright, I'm just giving you 2014, you drop the 0, 14, 2 times 7. Okay, that's just by way of example, and we're going to carry on. That's just by way of example, and we're going to carry on. So 2014 will be a milestone and hopefully a magic year in many respects. It will mark the 100th anniversary of the First World War back in 1914. It will mark the 70th anniversary, drop the 0, 7, of the Bretton Woods Conference that actually gave birth to the IMF. And it will be the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. 25th. It will also mark the 7th anniversary of the financial market jitters that quickly turned into the greatest global economic calamity since the Great Depression. The crisis still lingers. Yet, optimism is in the air. We've left the deep freeze behind us, and the horizon looks just a bit brighter. So my hope and my wish for 2014 is that after those 7 miserable years, weak and fragile, we have 7 strong. I don't know whether the G7 will have anything to do with it.
You may have been thinking, guys, what the hell is this woman talking about? You would have expected, someone by now to have whipped her away from that podium and said, "Madam, you are having a nervous breakdown." But I just want to talk about the little bit of numerology that she was talking about, the magical number 7. It just so happens that we're in July, which is the 7th month of the year. It was the 17th when that aircraft in the Ukraine crashed. So there was that magical number 7 in that as well. And it was 2014. Now remember, she said it herself, the 2 7s make 14. She also made reference to the First World War, which began in 1914, and that it was 100 years since that time. Was this woman trying to say something? Because I tell you now, guys, before any evidence has been collected, Russia has been blamed for dropping that aircraft out of the sky over the Ukraine. And we all know Hillary Clinton is only too eager to get some form of action taken against Russia, and she's asking NATO basically to get in line and do something. Now I find this all very coincidental. First of all, the Malaysian aircraft or the Malaysian airline company have lost 2 birds in 6 months now, and my deepest sympathy goes out to those people that were on board there and their families. I want to say that, but what I feel is more important is what is being pulled on the millions of people in this world with regards to the shady business that goes on behind the veil, or the curtain, if you like. And I really feel that the United States and Europe are now trying to involve ourselves in a war with Russia. I think it's quite clear that before even the facts of why this aircraft has fallen out of the sky in the first place, that Russia have been blamed for it. I can't believe it, guys. I really can't believe it, honestly. I know I keep saying this in these recent videos, and what I've witnessed, you know, over the last few weeks, it seems the tempo has picked up and people are becoming very impatient to get some form of world war going, as if there isn't enough conflict in this world already. We are seeing a deliberate, and I mean a deliberate, attempt to get a retaliation from Russia, and that is suicidal, because at the present time there may be thousands of people dying, but I guarantee you, if we engage in a world war, which is what it will turn out to be, it will involve the majority of the inhabitants on this planet. And like I say, I find it very coincidental. That I find it more than coincidental. I think there's something very suspicious about this recent crash, and the fact that Russia got blamed so quick for it. The other thing is that only days before all this happened, President Putin had announced a World Bank which was built up from the BRIC nations, and I feel that what we're seeing is a similar scenario to what happened in Iraq when Saddam Hussein said he was no longer going to use the American dollar to trade oil. And again, it wasn't long before, you know, there was a war engaged, and a good excuse to go to war with the 9/11 false flag attack. So we know they use these attacks, guys, is what I'm saying. And we know there is a plan to reduce the world's population, and I believe that a war with Russia would certainly be one way to achieve that. So, you know, the Federal Reserve was threatened when Putin, you know, and those other BRIC nations got together and formed that bank, that global bank. And America doesn't like it when their dollar is not being used as the global currency, and this was one measure that perhaps Putin had gone too far. And what we've seen is a passenger airline company that has had two birds, or two aircraft, very similar aircraft, if not identical aircraft, go down in 6 months. And not only has it chosen a flight path across a war-torn country, the Ukraine, but it actually was downed in that territory 25 miles from the Russian border. And I think it's a bit too much of a coincidence. That's what I'm saying. I think we're on the precipice of a third world war, and quite possibly a nuclear war. And I mean that. I really see it that way, and I'm pretty sure others do as well. I think this has been nothing more than a false flag attack, and I think that the airline company itself is involved in these plans. And you know, I'm just surprised again for the lack of respect for human life. But it's all about money to these people that start wars. In fact, the Rothschilds said, we're not interested in who writes the laws, we're only interested in who controls the money. And we know in the First World War that the Rothschilds was not only funding one side of the war but both sides. People were dying in between this whilst they was profiting from it. And it was again mentioned by this woman in this, the Great Depression. Well, I tell you now, some experts would say these austerity times that we are living in right now far exceed what those times were like during the Great Depression. And it wasn't long after that Great Depression in 1938 that the Second World War was fixing a precursor to start. I can't believe there is a lack of humanity by these people, and that the lust for money is more important than, the love for their fellow human beings. I really can't. I think we're in some of the darkest moments of human history, I really do, and for reasons to do with some of the research that we've covered with relationships to the magnetic North Pole. But I think as a direct threat we are closer to it with our own behaviour. What I'm saying is this does look like they will be taking us to war with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Brazil, Argentina. Because when you put someone up against the wall, they have little choice but to come out in retaliation. And I think that we are very much putting President Putin up against the wall. I mean, there's been talk about these blood moons, and she mentioned this lunar period that they was in as well. And I haven't paid too much attention to this, but now I'm starting to think maybe you should look a little bit more into this, because I believe, from what I've heard, that some of the starkest atrocities have occurred during these points of time, and we are indeed, I believe, during a, quite presently, going through a blood moon transitional phase right now. And she mentioned, I believe, a date with the 7th, 2014, and we also seen the other 7 attached to that on the 17th when that plane was downed. Was this lady trying to warn us of something? Because I think it was pretty unique for such a person to talk about such things as she has. Has she let us know in a roundabout ways what is about to take place? That's all I'm saying. I am, at the moment, I can't help it, and I know it's not the best source of news, but I can't help but just listen to some of this stuff. And you listen to Hillary Clinton's talking about this. She begins by talking about terrorists, and then quickly says it is Russia and something needs to be done about it. She mentions Gazprom, sanctions, this, that and the other, and also calls for the rest of Europe, which we know is NATO, to fall in line with the American way of thinking. I've said it before, a small nuclear exchange and this planet will be beyond recognition. We're talking thermonuclear winters for at least 12 months, where temperatures drop from 20 to 30 degrees across all regions of the northern hemisphere. And the contamination lasts, as you know guys, for 250,000 years. We are on a precipice, and we need to back up away from this situation. We are closer to a Cold War, more closer than the Cuban Missile Crisis, I believe, now than what we was back then in the Castro era. So all I'm saying, guys, is, just be aware, and don't take this as just a coincidence that these two aircraft suddenly have gone missing from the same airline company, because this is nothing short of a false flag event. And when they are pushing the likes of Russia and their allies into a corner for the sake of money, I guarantee you the only thing that will come out of this will be the loss of millions and millions and millions of lives. What we've seen on the news media with regards to the deaths of citizens in Gaza, the Ukraine, Iraq, will be a mere grain of sand as opposed to what we will witness if we allow this to continue. This has to be nipped in the bud and stopped immediately. I call on everybody to do something about this, because now is the time. If this gets out of hand, it'll be your worstest nightmares, I guarantee you this. We do not want to see a third world war. We do not want to see limbs blown off children. We don't want to see millions of hectares of fertile land contaminated for 250,000 years. We do not want to destroy the diversities of biolife forms on this planet. And we do not want to kill innocent civilians, because all these people have somewhere to go during such an event. We don't. And, saying that, guys, I'm just speechless. So, I'm very concerned, and I dare say you probably will be as well. I suppose all I can say is, what I usually do, and that's just be safe, guys. May the grace of God be with you, and hope that they realise before they, go ahead with what I believe they're planning, that they come to their senses. I'll say bye for now, guys.